Okay, so we are live. Um, let's give people a chance to kind of join. So we're gonna start in about 2 minutes. So as soon as we make everybody know that the live has started, welcome everybody that's online already. Yeah, man, bless. So as I said before, for guys that are joining as we come on, we're just waiting 2 minutes for more people to come on, and then um, we will get into it. All right. All right, guys. So let's get started. Welcome everybody to our regular monthly meeting for Stocks on the Rocks. Boy, I can't wait until we actually start going back out at Palisades. I really miss that experience. Today we will be discussing taxes. So really and truly today we're looking at the basics of taxes and how it affects us and how it affects listed companies as well. So we always try to tie in the investment part so we can cater to everyone. So welcome again, and let's jump into it. So today, I'll be a moderator. You guys may be familiar with me already. I'm Simon and Johnson. Simon and Johnson. Simon Johnson. Simon Johnson. I go by the at Guru in Trading. Hey Miss Yoti. Guru in Training on Twitter. We have Shade Morrison today. Shade is a senior accountant at one of the big four accounting firms. I don't want to load her up. And Wendell Ivy, you guys may be familiar with him, big economist. The money in a local, the money thing in a local again. All
Yes,
right.
Simon.
So yeah, man. So I'll allow Shadi and Wendell to take over for a minute.
All right,
Thanks,
good.
Simon. Thanks for that welcome. Evening, everyone. Welcome to Stocks on the Rocks. As Simon just mentioned, today we'll be discussing taxation and how it impacts us as individuals, also corporations. We'll look at the importance of tax and just really have a discussion. How do tax affect you on your day-to-day activities? Because it does affect everyone, whether directly or indirectly. So I'll hand over now to Wendell, who will be giving you a brief definition of tax.
Good, good evening, everyone. Good evening. Welcome again to Stocks and the Rocks. So today, as Eddie and Simon outlined, we'll be looking at the taxes. So, what really are taxes? So, we know that. So, I'm just gonna have a discussion, really. So, we know that basically every year at the start of the fiscal year, the government, you see, the finance minister is doing up a budget. So, essentially, the budget is basically outlined in what they intend to spend and revenues that they intend to take in. So that's government spending and taxes basically. So the taxes is a revenue stream. So I see here on the slide we have like taxes are contributions that residents in a country pay to the government, and taxes are used by the government to pay for things that benefit the country. So, for example, we have roads, lights, public goods. Taxes are used to basically pay for those things. So that is just basically what taxes are for those who don't really know. I know that many people on the live, you already have a working definition of taxes, but there are still many people out there who do not really understand taxes. So you have the main
Basically,
type of taxes. Huh?
sorry to cut you off, but basically, taxes is just what the government collects
Yeah.
from us. Oh, guys, I want to mention again. So I forgot to mention that even though we're moderating, we have Ashdean. It's a dollar bill himself. Online. So Ashdean says that he's the layman's here. So he'll be making sure that the conversation stays down to earth. And we have Julian Morrison, so well watch himself. All right.
Yeah, guys. So as we were saying, like whenever we get paid on a monthly basis, you might see certain things coming out of your pay, and when you see a big figure on that side, and you're saying, "Wow, imagine if I didn't have to pay all this, I would be going home with much more money." So one of the things that you'll find on that income slip or pay slip is you have the education taxes, you have the income tax, and based on relative to all other taxes that you would might be seeing coming from your pay, in the personal income tax is actually the highest from it. You also have corporate income taxes. You pay taxes when you go to register your car, to get your fitness, and whenever you try to import anything into the country, you still pay a fee, taxes. You have GCT, which has been reduced a bit by 1.5% the other day. Consumption tax, that's general consumption tax. You have environmental tax, and you also pay taxes when you basically get dividend payments. So those are some of the main type of taxes.
Yeah, man. And um, yes, I just want to mention that some of these, like so, for example, the fees that we're required to pay on those motor vehicles are included here as well. So what this slide really adds to the conversation is these are just some of the taxes as well, guys. These are just some of the taxes that we are exposed to, of course, based on the type of activity that you're involved in and your relative wealth. Certain taxes will affect you more or less than some taxes. So, for example, I know that the PAYE people, especially, pay some form of education tax. And that education tax is supposed to, and I say supposed to for obvious reasons, is supposed to go to towards building up the institution of education in Jamaica. But and then the personal income tax is one that I bawl about. I bawl about that every month because trust me, that PAYE thing is heavy. So if you earn over a certain amount, I think now if you earn over 6 million, your tax rate, personal income tax is 33%. If you earn below 6 million but over 1.5, I think 1.5 is the threshold now, Shade.
Yes, 1.5 is the
Um,
threshold, and that would be
yeah,
25%.
and that's 25%. And then the corporate income tax, it kind of varies as well, depending on the type of company. So certain companies pay 33 and a third percent, while other companies just pay 25%. And we're actually going to look into more into the corporate side of the taxes as well.
So I know regulated companies pay 33. So that is company that is regulated by the FSC or BOJ. They're expected to pay 33%. And the ones that are not regulated pay 25%.
Okay. We have a question. Moderators, just bear with me. Um, so I'm going to put up some questions. So as we go along, we can better answer some of these things. All right. So somebody said that they're not familiar with what environmental tax is, or what we call the environmental levy is. Would any of you guys be able to speak about that?
I'm not familiar with environmental tax at all.
Mm. I think the environmental levy is something that is placed on companies that are deemed to contribute negatively to the environment.
Like
That is
CO2
Um,
correct,
emission.
Simon. So the environmental tax are indeed levied on those like factories and other companies that may exhaust pollution
CO2
or
emission.
negatively impact the environment, as the name rightfully suggests. So that is really what
and
environmental tax is.
I want to add that there's an import environmental tax as well for goods that are so deemed, right? So we have a local environmental tax for companies here and an environmental tax for goods that are taken into the country. Anissa says for over 6 million is 30%. Boy, Anissa, I wouldn't know personally. We don't reach some level yet. We don't reach some level yet, but yeah.
And it's a thing.
Um,
Oh,
all right. So Missy, as usual, have some very good questions. So she's asking Shade, how are
Yes.
cess and duty different from taxes? Buddy hearing me?
Yeah, man, I hear you, Simon.
Yeah, man. So she's asking how are cess and duty like custom stamp duty different from taxes. And I think as it pertains to this missile, let me just take a hit at it. So taxes are defined as contributions that we have to pay based on based on what the government stipulates. So they'll say that has to go by X percent, you have to pay X percent, and you pay X percent. But as a part of our tax revenue, part of that is what we call fees that are levied through government services as well. So when you, for example, um, go to tax office and pay certain fees, the customs duty is considered tax on imported and exported goods as well. So, well, as a matter of fact, we actually get into the customs duty. Let me say, we get into the customs duty because that's a big one. So, Shade, I just wanted if you could briefly touch, because sometimes people mix up the different types of taxes. If you could briefly touch on the progressive versus the regressive tax.
Simon?
Yeah, man, I'm hearing you. Yeah, sorry, Shade. So, all right, sorry, guys, we're having a little technical difficulty. It's moving a little slow. So what I was saying is that Shadi, if you could just briefly touch on the difference between a progressive tax and a regressive tax. Or and I don't think Shadi is hearing me. Julian. All right.
Yeah,
So
Simon.
Shadi dropped off. Yeah, man. I hear you, Julian. I'm trying to get back Shadi, but you can answer.
Yeah, man. So progressive taxes, as we can see, they're progressive in that upper income families pay a larger share of their incomes in tax, rather than those who are of a lower income. And regressive taxes require the poor and the middle income to pay a larger share of their income in taxes than the rich. So what progressive and regressive taxes are really speaking to they really speak to the economic impact of who should share the burden of taxation, because taxation is seen as something that the public has to share, but we realize that taxes do impact different income segments equally. So a progressive tax is seen as something that is more, how can I put it? It's more fair. It can be reasoned as more fair because those who have more income can afford to pay more, as opposed to a regressive tax where those who really can't afford it have to carry a more arduous burden.
Okay. And with this one, Julian, that's actually a big conversation because some parts of society may say that, look, you are basically charging us because we have worked over X period of time and we're wealthier, right?
Right. And these high net worth individuals in some territories, I should say, they sometimes feel as though they're being punished for being successful, so to speak, because they want to preserve the wealth that they have built, and they think that the taxation is actually a way of um, threatening the growth rate of their wealth, which is why there's an entire industry that's dedicated to tax tax efficiency, we should say, or tax avoidance.
Yeah, tax avoidance.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, man. I just want to mention the tax that we spoke about a while ago, the income tax. It is in some way progressive because if you earn a certain amount of income, your tax rate is different from the person that earns a different subset of income. So, for example, as Anissa mentioned a while ago, if you earn over 6 million, your tax rate is 30%. But if you earn below, it's a low amount. So, and funny enough, Julian, I've heard that with certain companies, when someone gets promoted and their tax and their taxable income is going to move over that $6 million barrier, um, they may prefer to get the amount that they're getting now. Depends on if it's more or there are other ways in which a company can compensate employees that won't make them pay more in taxable income. And I just want to be very diplomatic with that one. Yeah, so this is a very very important concept to have. But Julian, you touched on something important with tax avoidance versus some people usually mix it up with tax evasion, right? You want to shed some light? Well, Shadi is back. Shadi, Shadi, are you
I'm
hearing
back.
me?
I'm back, Simon. I'm back. I was having some difficulties as I'm using a cell phone, so I'm so
Oh,
sorry about that.
yeah, man. That's okay. So actually, we were just touching on the difference between tax avoidance, as Julian mentioned a while ago, and tax evasion.
Mm-hmm.
So I was wondering if you guys could shed some light on the differences between the two.
So tax avoidance is a legal way to curb, or one would try to minimize the amount of tax expenses that they pay over to the government in a way to, of course, have their profit actually retain some of their profits. So tax avoidance is the act of trying to minimize taxes, while tax evasion is an illegal act, and there are definitely penalties if someone try to evade tax. So one is legal and one is definitely illegal.
You know, early this morning, I was on Kalila's Instagram page, and she was discussing um the having the ability to register your company in a country that has a lower tax than Jamaica. All right, so let me explain. So the Caribbean has a one tax treaty. which means that if I register my company in Barbados, for example, and I pay taxes in Barbados, then when if my income comes here, then I don't have to pay taxes or corporate income tax on that income, right? So we have a one tax policy. For a while, St. Lucia's tax rate was 1%, right? So you know what this means. This means that a lot of people just incorporated their companies in St. Lucia and operated out of Jamaica. So it's a way of getting that tax efficiency that Julian spoke about, and it's illegal tax avoidance. I was telling Kalila that since last year they actually got rid of that because St. Lucia, Cayman is one, Barbados, etc. We're getting a lot of pressure from international agencies saying, look, our people and there are businesses that are funneling money through your countries. Your countries are acting as what they call tax shelters, right? This must change, or we are going to change our relationships with you. I know small islands. Small islands, they say, look, all right, we don't want to be in no trouble, so let's change this. So as of last year, I think it was late last year, the change in the tax law says companies that were incorporated before a specific date, they will continue to pay the 1% up to mid 2021. However, after mid 2021, they will pay full tax. However, companies that are registered after that date must pay full taxes right away. So immediately, that liquor, what them call it, the liquor party get mashed up as it pertains to the St. Lucian laws. So yeah, man, it's just touching on tax avoidance and evasion, and one of the reasons why it's important to catch tax evaders for different countries is that taxes make up a lot of the income of government. So we're going to jump into the income in a few slides, and then we can come back to this evasion thing so you can really see how important that is. Yeah. So I think it's this slide. All right, so hold on, let me just take a quick question first. Hey Julie, Jervis, what's up? So somebody said, isn't it a case? Well, let me put up the question so the moderators can see. Isn't it a case where only the amount over 6 million is taxed at increased rate? Yeah, the amount over 6 million is taxed at increased rate. But what I had calculated, well, I calculated it once, but trust me, people look at this. There is a specific amount, and probably we need to get David with him in calculator for this one. I calculated it before. There's a specific amount under 6 million, over 6 million, where if you get paid that amount, your overall taxable income is actually your overall taxes that you pay is actually relatively more. So it's actually better off that you got under the 6 million. So I see Anissa agreed with me before saying most refuse that increase if the increase is not a decent amount over the 6 million that actually makes them better off. Because I mean I pay PAYE and I'm telling you, I mean, God bless my company and all, and God bless the government. But when I see that income tax come out of my pay every month, I was like, if I never had to pay this, I'd be a wealthy man. Things would be so much better off, right?
Simon, you're speaking for the crowd.
Oh man, may I tell you, man? Actually, funny story. I remember the first time I got paid. So I was working. First time I got paid, where I was actually over the threshold, barely over the threshold too, at SSL.
Yeah.
And when I got the check, no, the pay advice. When I got the pay advice, which is just a slip saying how much you paid and how much you paid in taxes.
Mm-hmm.
Um, when I got that slip and I looked on it, and I see the tax amount, I said, no man,
Yeah,
there's no
man.
way.
Yeah, man. You can imagine a person earning say 1.450, and then they get an increase a little bit over 1.5, and then that tax set in, they actually going home with less pay than before.
Than
So,
before.
yes, so that thing actually happens. It happens around all the barriers are where the tax rate changes. So I mean, yapiti. I'm not gonna call it yapiti. Yap, yap. Just reinforce the point that it's the amount over 6 million that he get taxed on. But yeah, man, I actually went downstairs to the HR manager and I said, boy, I don't remember her name, but I said, I want to talk to you about something. I close the door. I'm going to say, I have something for show you. I don't know if this is correct.
But
I'm sure. And, she started laugh because she's like, Simon, welcome to the work world. Welcome. Welcome. So yeah, man. So just to look at the slide that where we're at now, where do our taxes come from? So Ivy already established that taxes are collected by the government, but where does a brunt of the taxes come from? So between February and March of each year, the government provides their estimates of taxes to be collected um, over the next fiscal year. 73% of the total revenues that the government makes actually comes from taxes. So it's a very important part of their income stream. The biggest part of that is actually general consumption taxes, which is why when the suggestion was made, I think by Dr. Phillips Ivy a couple months ago, to cut the GCT rate, a lot of companies, a lot of people say, boy, it sounds great, but the government are gonna lose a lot of money, you know, and the government have their same expenses. So how we gonna work out that? So if you look here, income tax actually accounts at 28% of that 73%, and special consumption taxes account for about 14%.
Special consumption taxes are like things on like alcohol and gas and stuff like that. For
Yeah,
those who
man.
would be wondering.
So they actually have a special word for taxes that are levied on like alcohol and cigarettes, and they call it Shadia sin tax.
syntax. I see irony.
No pun intended.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. So as the syntax is basically, so they're not necessarily taxing cigarettes and alcohol because they want the huge amount of revenue that comes from it. They want revenue, and that's part. Oh, Yap says they also call it the vice tax. They are okay with the revenue. However, their major thing is that they want to disincentivize its consumption. Now, over the past couple of years, I'm going to say past couple of years, going back probably like a decade or more, the government, I think, shifted more from disincentivizing it to relying a little too much on taxing cigarettes and, and alcohol, and implementing other special consumption taxes, right? So, for example, you get taxed based on the minutes that you talk. So that's one of them. Yes, yes, yeah. So I don't, I think it's the, so see Missy Oti just mentioned it as well. All right, so somebody asked a good question. It goes back to something that was said before. I don't know if Julian can take this one. It says that companies like Cygnus and Mayberry, I think this is Mayberry Jamaica Equities, will be affected by the change of tax in St. Lucia.
Well, based on what we were discussing earlier, Simon, I think
Mhm.
that the change that was made last year would affect them in 2023, I believe. What was the date again, Simon?
I think it's mid 21.
Wow, that's even sooner than expected.
And
So
Missy rightfully said proven as well.
yes. So the answer is yes. It's just a matter of time because it's something that it would materially change the landscape. Because the argument is this: there are many large economies that have profitable companies, and the governments of these states or these countries rely on these profitable companies to fund their social services, right? So
Mhm.
all of the hospitals, the high quality schools, people have lauded the European region pretty much for the most part, for their high quality social services. But those social services come at a cost. And when they have those their major companies moving their registration to the Caribbean, they're missing out on taxes that they could have earned. So that's a major factor in them clamping down on the Caribbean because in some way the Caribbean is in Jamaican parlance, it's a box food out of their mouth and them don't want that. There's really no other way to put it.
And
So
then,
that's a
yeah,
major factor.
and then the thing, added factor to it is that um, some of it is not tax evasion, some of it is just legitimate tax avoidance.
Right,
So companies like Cayman, Bahamas, St. Lucia actually just have laws that make it easier to hide taxes from your government. We're not going around it, right?
right.
Um, so
Correct.
so so it's not like they can say to the US can say to St. Lucia, look, you need to get the criminals out. Technically, they're not criminals. So what they've done is lobbied, against them using their might, etc., to say, look, if you don't change these laws, then X, Y, Z,
Yeah,
right?
because my
Um,
problem is gonna become your problem. That's the reasoning.
Ah, yeah, as the Godfather would say.
Yeah,
I
pretty
just
much.
wanted to point out, said Jilly's website, Financial Sensibility, has calculators on it, which are very good. Right? So you
Simon,
guys can check that out as well. Ivy, what's up?
to backtrack a little bit, we were talking about the income tax, but I think we made an error in, like, for example, if you earn 3 million, it is the first 1.5 that 1.5 is not actually taxed. Or
Mhm.
the difference between the first 1.5 and the second 1.5, that is what is actually you get a tax on that, basically.
Yeah, man. So it's a threshold. I think we had
Yeah,
we
man.
had we had pointed it out up at the top. That it's what's over 666 million,
Hmm.
and it's what's within the band between 1.5 and the next band. So yeah, we should have explicitly said
Yeah,
that.
man. And a fun fact is that um I've been looking at like the trends in terms of the the percentage of Jamaicans in each income band, and you find that 80% of Jamaicans, based on the data coming from TAJ,
Mhm.
80% of Jamaicans basically earn 1.5 or below. 80%, that's 20% earn over.
Wow. And when I was earning that, Ivy, and I think I wish year it was. I remember that when that came into being, like my tax bill went down materially because I was barely over it, right? I think the original threshold was if you earned over 590,000, and then it was incrementally moved up. And I'm
Yeah,
telling you, man, I remember even on the news, people who don't work at all were saying that the government are giving them, I think it was at 8,000 or so.
yeah,
Government
yeah.
are giving them 8,000 and them come for collect it, etc. that was funny, but I think PAYE earners specifically have always said that look, we actually contribute a bulk to the total amount of private income tax. Yes, so yeah, man, Jelly. So it's 592 in 2016. That's when I started working. Um, we contribute a bulk to that, right? However, you basically using us to try to make everything else or everybody else better off. You know, that some people argue that, and some people argue that it's unfair. I mean that can be left up to what you think. Ashdeen, why you think about that argument?
Um, in regards to the taxes, right?
Mm.
Yeah, man. So remember, it would be a case that at first you'd be apparently your income would be a little bit less because you were taxed more, right? So whenever that tax law move, of course you'd feel like you have a little bit more money, you know. So it was a good thing.
But you feel rich.
In the simplest form, right?
Yeah, I you
All
know,
right.
just to touch on policy, I remember when the government had mentioned that they wanted to increase the tax threshold. I think originally they wanted to increase it to 1.5 right away pre 2016, and the discussion was, boy, if you do that, the amount we have already started on this journey, and the amount of money that we would lose over that year would actually hurt us because the money has to come from somewhere. I think in some discussions with multilateral agencies, they actually worked out to do it in phases, which is how the July 2016, as Julie as here in the comments, of 1 million came about, and then a subsequent increase to 1.5. So just to
Okay.
give people a little background on that. Yeah.
Okay, so that means that they were actually doing it incrementally rather than just doing it all at once. Something like
Yes,
that, right?
I think the objective at first was to increase it to 1.5 all at once, and I think after consultations they opted to do it in phases.
In
Ooh,
phases.
so Heather asks a very important question, right? Are there any tax reliefs or rebates for individuals? So I am no tax expert, but let me tell you a story. So I was advised to go to the tax office, not the normal tax office that's in Crossroad or downtown. There's a special one that's at NCB Towers. I don't even know its name. I was just told to go there. It's like at one of the top floors. To ask about tax returns, right? Or objection office name. Yep, you know this too well, man.
Yeah, man,
And
yeah, on point.
when Yeah, man. When I went to that office, and I was just asked to just ask them if I am eligible for any tax returns. And when I asked the man, and he went into the system, took my TRN, and went through everything, he was saying, "Oh, yeah, man. Say you're supposed to get back X amount of money." I mean, I tell you. So basically, I had money at the tax agency sitting down, and I never know. So since that, I've always encouraged people to find out, talk to somebody that is actually in the industry. I don't know if Shadi can put more color on this one, but yeah, man, I had money at the tax agency and I did spend it responsibly, of course.
Of course.
Mhm. All right, so Yapa get into politics, but yeah, man, he said it's called the objection office. I've 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 never heard the word objection. Somebody just advised me to go, and I'm just letting you guys know that
Mhm.
you should check it out, right? Check it out, please. So we looked at where do your taxes come from, right? So review 73% of your taxes are of total taxes collected, total income collected by the government are tax revenue, and that's broken down into income tax, your GCT, and your SCT, right? Those are a majority of the taxes that the government collects. Now, what are these taxes used to do? Because remember, we saying the government collect taxes for a purpose, right? There must be some form of purpose, right? So when taxes are collected, they are then used to fund the expenses of the country. Quick fact: 32% of our tax revenue in the fiscal year that just ended for the government was actually just spent on debt. 32% of it was just went straight to debt. So that's interest payments and principal payments, right? However, this is much better than in 2015, 16, when Jamaica was spending over 50% of taxes on debt. So I know that you guys can see the benefit there right away. So when you're spending 50% of your income um, on something, you have scarce resources. That means that in order to spend it on X, you would have had to give up on spending on Y and Z. So expenses on, for example, the health sector, the public health system, the education system, security, etc., were naturally less because we had debt obligations. So as that has come down, we've seen that a lot of money has been, and Dr. Clark, may I call the big man Nigel, Jesus, and Dr. Clark has, has spoken about this, where more money has gone to social services, more money has gone to security, and a lot more money has gone to building roads and bridges, as you can see some of the projects that are here. So just to break it down, if you look at the slide, 53% of our taxes are spent on general administration. And this general administration includes debt. That's why it's so big. 13% is spent on security.
Can
And
imagine it.
security, sorry, Ivy.
Go ahead, man. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. So the security here is the JDF, the police, the correctional services, and the justice system. Social services get around 25% of that. So that is education, health, housing, water, social related services. And 9% goes to what the Ministry of Finance calls the economy. So this is 9% goes to industry, agriculture, transport and communication, fuel, environment, etc. So this is how your taxes are effectively spent. Do you have any questions on this one? All right, so let's jump into it. And well, we're going to jump into how COVID might affect this in the latter part of the slides. So just stay tuned, guys. So impact of taxes on listed companies. These are just some of the major ways that we can see from the statements. So taxes generally reduce the net income of listed companies. That's the most obvious one, right? The more taxes you pay, taxes on expense, the more taxes you pay, the less overall net income that you make. Junior market companies, however, enjoy a tax incentive. You can see the image in blue. So for those that don't know, for the new investors, I know I kind of talk too much. Julian, you want jump into this one?
All right, so companies that list on the junior market will receive a full income tax holiday for the first 5 years after listing. and a 50% income tax holiday in years 6 to 10. Visit the JSE's website for further details. So, just from a bird's eye view, what this does is that it essentially gives junior market companies a benefit, because if they weren't listed on the junior market and they were privately held, it means that they would have paid the normal tax rate that companies are subject to, um, regarding the size of the business. So these smaller firms that are more vulnerable because of their size, they're essentially benefiting from this break in more ways than one. It means that not only are they getting a break, so they have more of their profit, their income, I should say, to reinvest in the business, but it also provides somewhat of a how can I put it? It gives a sweetener for investors to actually look at some of these small firms. Because when an investor is looking across the entire market, both junior and main, they will say, okay, what are my investment opportunities? They can actually look at some of these smaller firms that um, are enjoying this benefit. So it is a sweetener both from the company standpoint and from the investor standpoint.
Yeah, it is. And Julian, and just to bring up an argument that I heard before about this, I don't remember where I was, but somebody was mentioning that look, and initially, this was mentioned initially when this was implemented for the junior market, because there were people that were against it. They were saying, look, we're basically giving these businesses an excuse not to pay taxes, right? This
Right.
is going to leave a hole in the budget. Um, how are we going to get this done? However, I think last year or the year before, Mrs. Street Forest has stated that the stock exchange had conducted a small study into the amount of taxes that listed junior market companies pay are paid before listing and paid after listing. And it actually stated that junior market companies actually pay more in taxes after listing, right? When you talk about their total amount of taxes. So we junior market companies don't only pay corporate income tax.
Yeah, some of them would pay minimum business tax, right?
Yeah, so there was a minimum business tax.
Which is
There
now
are stamp
repealed.
duties, there are fees, there are customs duties. I mean, there are a whole lot of slew of taxes that they may have to pay depending on the type of service. So the study showed that these companies actually paid more after. And then there's another thing, Julian and team, that a lot of people never looked on. The data shows that a majority, a large percentage of companies in Jamaica do not actually report their correct financials, right? And you can see that based on the tax compliance numbers. So,
Right.
an argument that I've heard is that when you come on a stock exchange, you are forced to be regularized, right? And as
Mhm.
such, as your total amount of income, etc., is reported, then as when you're a part of the formal system and this is being reported, you thus naturally pay more taxes.
Oh, Simon, is this where the audited and unaudited financials come in?
Not necessarily. So the unaudited financials, and I mean, Shadi can explain the difference between unaudited and audited. Um, Oh, just a quick one, guys. We did a video on explaining financial statements. So if you want that, you can just go to our YouTube page. Well, no, the difference between the unaudited and the audited, the major difference is that the unaudited is done in-house by management,
Hmm.
and the audited is done by an auditing firm, such like one that Shade works.
Yeah.
So
That's
what
correct.
I'm
And
talking. Mhm.
what was your initial question?
No, so I was just talking about the likelihood that or
No,
I was just talking about companies that don't report
What's the
their
difference between the audited and unaudited financial
yeah,
statement?
because you were speaking about being regularized. So I'm saying that whenever they actually have the audited financials, that's where the regulators would actually look and see if they were regularized or not, right?
Oh no,
boy.
when we talk about the regulated companies, it's just so like the ones that FSC regulated. So those are the depositing taking institutions.
Okay,
So that's all they mean by regularized. So
okay,
it has nothing to do with tax. As
okay,
Simon rightfully said, the ones that are audited are done by independent auditors, public auditors,
But
unlike the unaudited ones that are done by in-house accountants. And those are not normally published to potential investors or the public at large.
okay. So,
okay.
far, sorry guys, just for the listeners, for what I was talking about, regularized. Why the word is so hard for me to pronounce? All right. What I was talking as it pertains to that R word, was companies that actually come on the stock exchange and now they have to release their financials, they have to release audited financials, etc. So they're kind of now in the system. So but Ashton, just to get back to your thing, it is likely that a company can still evade taxes and have audited statements.
Oh, okay,
Yeah, because there are situations where a company can underreport. They can be making 300 million in profit for argument's sake, and this is just me throwing out figures. They can be making 300 million J in profit, but they only represent a portion of that on their financial statements. So they may have two sets of financial statements, one with one set of numbers and another with another set of numbers. So when the auditors come, they show the numbers that they want to show. So this
okay,
doesn't have anything to do with companies that are listed on the exchange who have unaudited figures versus audited figures. That's a different argument.
When you say they can show what numbers they want to show, what exactly do you mean? Because that is the main purpose of the auditors, to ensure that the numbers that they're showing is true and fair. So I don't think
Yeah,
that they can just choose to not show figures without giving proper accounting for them, though. So when you say they can just not show figures,
I mean,
What Julian and I are hinting at today,
mm,
it's a whole
and
can of
you
worms. Yeah,
and
I completely
and
understand. I completely understand.
you
Yeah.
don't have to confirm or deny this, Shade,
Uh-huh.
is that it is possible
oh yes,
to have
man, where accounts
audited
can play with
statements.
their numbers.
Okay.
We call it
Okay,
cook.
that's what you're alluding to. Oh yes, man. Okay, that is
It's a
correct.
Simon. Where it's a cook, them cook up some stuff.
But
Cook up some
they
numbers.
not cookie, they strategically play with the numbers where
I-
everything is legal.
Mhm. And
Okay.
then, I mean, so yeah, that's as it pertains to. Oh, there was one more thing, and we're actually going to go into some examples of these things just to show the new investors. So I know, like Gillian, Yap, and Jervis, etc., maybe used to seeing the financial statements. We're actually going to go into some statements and look at the numbers. But there's also something called deferred tax assets and deferred tax liabilities, right? So and when it comes down to advanced accounting and or especially auditing, I'm a layman. So Shadi, you want to jump in and just like give a layman understanding of what these are?
The deferred tax.
Yeah.
So
Are mhm.
as the name says, it deferred. So it is deferred to a future period.
Mhm. So
yeah, but Shani, walk us through it. Why would a company want to do that?
how how I see it, and I'm let me just throw out my basic understanding out here first, right? So a deferred tax asset is something where somebody owe me, right? So it's an asset.
Yes.
right? It's something that I can claim at some point in the future. I have a claim on it. It's an asset. Now, my understanding is that deferred tax asset is when you pay more money than you're supposed to, right? You basically pay more in taxes than you're supposed to, and an asset is created, so you actually have a claim on that amount of money that's over, and a deferred tax liability is actually when you pay less than you're supposed to, and you actually owe these
Or
things.
you pay in advance.
Yes, so are you pay in advance as it pertains to the
The
to the
ad-
deferred tax asset. So
that
so yeah, man. So that's how I look on it. I'm no accountant or auditor. So when I see, for example, a deferred tax asset, so for like Trans Jamaica had deferred tax assets, and in the prospectus, they said that, oh, we can make a reduced amount of income, but hey, we have deferred tax assets that we can pull on that creates a tax credit, and as such, you can get
it,
more profitability.
as such it reduce the taxable income.
Yes, it reduce. Yes, that's the correct way to say it. It does. So it
Oh,
reduces
Simon,
the income. Yeah.
Simon. So when you went to that place in NCB Towers and you got that refund, if that's how we can classify it, we could call that a deferred tax asset, right?
Oh,
For you, Simon, if you were a company.
that's an interesting way to look at it, Julian. You know, I wasn't looking at it like that. It was
If
a hell of a deferred tax asset as well.
or a tax relief, yeah. If you was a corporation,
I
but
want to tell
in
you,
each case it's a tax relief.
I want to tell you, say, me eat a big yo food off of that mixed fish, chili
Yeah,
chicken
We
and
wish you
pulled
many
chicken.
more your foods in the future, brother.
Yeah, but you know, since then, Julian, I've been checking every year. But me get no more. So probably I should have asked, or you know, probably the guy told me, you know, but I was too excited. But probably I should have asked exactly how the tax refund thing went.
Yeah, we need to check.
Missy Otis said, I wish I could go online and find out if I had any deferred tax assets.
yeah.
Boy, me too. I think it's
All of
something that
us.
you can do online, that you should be able to do online. But I mean, you guys know know what I think about that already. So this is just briefly to look at the impact of taxes on listed companies. Oh, so Carreras came out, guys. I don't know if you saw this today. I could tweet about it because I was preparing for this. I don't even know why the different line items increase, because I haven't read it as yet. I just cut it out. So I could show you the income tax as down here. So I mean, just briefly, and if you guys want details on how to read financial statements, remember to go to our other video. But just briefly, for careers or for companies in general, the money flows from top to bottom. So at the top where you have operating revenue, this is the total this is the total amount of revenue that they made, or cigarettes that they sold, and the cost of operating revenue is what they did to get there. So when that reach when you collect all your revenues and pay all your expenses, then the government comes and says, okay, what's your taxable income? And they will place a tax rate on that. And if you and the tax rate on that, for income tax, if you realize this thing right here, guys, this is a note 8A. If you want details about the income tax, you can actually go there and get details. So this is just stating, showing people where you can find income tax expense on the income statement. So it's usually the second to last line if your last line is net income. Missy Otis said, I'm so happy that there are no capital gains tax. Boy, Missy, I tell you, because if
Yeah, I
there
mean,
was a If there was capital gains tax, we'd have make much less money, I tell you.
Miss Gilly is asking about what is withholding tax.
All right, withholding tax. You want touch on that, Julian?
Boy, Simon, you know, so I don't know what that.
Yeah. So I think the withholding tax is, so for example, and let me just tell it from my perspective, from my part of the business. I understand. I'll say I'm no tax expert.
So, mhm.
So oh sorry, Shadi, you can jump in.
So as the name suggests, withholding tax, it is tax before the income or the payment is made to the receiver. So the government gets the tax before the money is disbursed. So it's withheld tax. Simple as that, as the name suggests.
So basically what I say is me no see the money.
You're exactly. So if you're supposed to get returns on investment before
Ah,
you get your portion, it is held at the financial institution and the tax is deducted from there prior to you getting the money. So it's withheld tax. It's paid over to the government by the financial institution before they pay over. In this case, I'm just using dividend, for example. So what you're gonna get is the net amount that belongs to you. So the tax is dealt with between the financial institution and they pay it over to the government.
So at the
So it's
source, pretty
withheld.
much.
yeah.
So
Okay.
at the
You
source.
leave it.
So from my perspective, the part of the business that I am the investment banking side, that's
Yes.
actually how I understand it. That like for example, if we issue a bond and if the bond has taxable income before the interest is paid over to you, Shade, let's say for example you bought the bond, before
Mm-hmm.
it's paid over to you, or the firm would actually take out your taxes, withhold your taxes before.
That's correct. And it's similar to your statutory employee statutory taxes, like the NIS, the ed tax. Like for you, I'm not sure about everybody, but where I work, the employer pays over those taxes directly to the government. So in a broad sense, those are also withheld. You don't have to deal with the hassle to pay over those taxes.
Yeah, and as you say, education tax and them thing then, man. How will you tax to pay, Because when you think, all right, so and yeah, me I got a little 1 minute rant. So I understand the NHT the paying over that NIS etc. And overall NIS, even though we pay it because we have formal schemes that we are a part of, we may not benefit as much as others benefit from it, if you get what I'm saying, right? But when you look on like the NHT is collecting a lot more money than them can actually
Mhm.
build houses. A lot more. Billions of dollars sit on the balance sheet. Billions. And somebody I saw coming somewhere about NIF. NIF is the National Insurance Fund. So they actually invest the contributions to your insurance that you make to the government. And that's billions of dollars as well that they invest. So the
The
NIF is
thing is,
actually a
the
lot.
thing is, the thing is, Simon, we are paying or contributing to persons who worked 20 years ago. So it's an ongoing thing. So we have to pay because we are financing the housing and the health and all of those security for persons who worked 10, 15 years ago. And
All
then
right.
the future persons now will be entering the labor force is going to pay for our health benefits or housing. So it's like that.
Why? But I understand. But still. But I mean, overall, I think probably what the NHT can do is, and its rate is very low. But if you realize overall market rates um have also come down. I think how they can help to compensate us is by cutting that rate a bit more. And just for note, because I know somebody are going to mention it. We should also add that any amount you contribute to the NHT, I think you can claim back for it in 7 years or 7 years, yeah? All right, everybody upon this live too young. But yes, yes,
Right.
you can.
Yeah,
I
man.
think you
I
can.
saw Eda was making the comment saying that you can apply for a refund from the NHT.
Oh, Gilly just says that you can do it in the 8th year. Actually, oh, 7 years.
You have to wait
Yeah.
a turn. Wait a turn,
Yeah.
basically.
Yes, so Gilly said after, yes, she said after 7 years. So you do it in the 8th year. So in the 8th year, Gilly, and work with me, in the 8th year, you get back your first year, right? So and then every year after that, you get back 1 year after that first year. So boy, it's gonna be a while before
So,
I
so,
start
so
paying.
that mean if you had contributed for 16 years and you want back all that money, you have to wait 8 years, then 16 more?
Yeah, so you basically
Is that
Gilly.
oh,
Gilly.
Really, you know why that happened, right? You know why that happened. I don't know where we hear a brother call it Gilly. I don't know where we hear a brother call it Gilly, and I just start say,
it's stuck.
my apologies, my apologies. Somebody said, oh, and very important point. Monica Bogle says you actually get by the NHT, hold on, with interest, right? However, the argument is Monica. And yeah, me I go play devil's advocate. The argument is I could have used my NHT money or a portion of it and make more than the interest that they're giving me. But I understand the overall social benefit. I just think that the NHT has all right. So the purpose of the NHT is to build houses, is to build out the infrastructure, right? Remember, for a good while, successive governments were actually using the NHT to build houses and to put back money in what they call a consolidated fund. So the consolidated fund is like the big account where the government pull their money from, right? So remember that the NHT was actually funding a lot of non-housing related expenses for a while because they had so much money, right? So I mean, Dr. King has made quite a few recommendations about the NHT. So you guys can go and check out the recommendations on Capri's site. I don't want to run too much because we'll start talking about careers and over reach NHT, you know. But yes. So, but I mean, conversation is good because I'm sure everybody is learning something as we go along. Somebody said, "Oh, so Mio Soti is saying that she's gotten used to Missy Oti. My apologies, Mio Soti. I call you Missy Oti as well, but that will change as of today. Yes. So for careers, if you realize the income tax is down here, the second to last item right there, and this is, oh boy, I forgot to put the name of the company. This is Fast Rich's financial statements. Somebody's asking what's the interest that NHT usually does on their refund. I think the interest is dependent on the interest that was made. I don't think it's fixed, but if somebody can share the last interest payment that they got when they collected their NHT, that would be good. So
I think
when they do that, go through.
I think Gilly just said that it was 1.4%.
Oh,
Um,
she said it. All right,
yeah, she
hold
did.
on.
Yes, so
Okay.
she had calculated hers to be 1.4
Yeah, 1.4
Oh yeah,
percent.
last year.
I found the comment. So here it is, Jovan. So she said last year. So she calculated hers to be 1.4% last year.
Per
Um,
annum.
per
Per
annum,
annum, yeah.
So that's important for per annum for each year. So for each year, she would have made on average about 1.4%. That's what you're saying, Julie? All right. So that's important information for anybody that contributes to the NHD. And I learned a lot of these things late last year, to be honest. All right, so this is fast rich. So what do you realize is the difference with this one, guys? So remember, your taxation is down to the bottom, but you realize that the taxes here is blank, it's zero. All right, and why is that? Let me just give a 3 second pause so people can think about it. Yes, because of the junior stock exchange rule
Tax
around
write-off.
tax incentives. Yeah.
Okay.
So it's not necessarily a write-off, but it's an incentive or what we call a tax holiday. So Fast Rich listed in 20, 2017, I believe. SSL listed them in 2017. And, and because of that, so from 2017 up to the fifth year, Fast Rich would actually pay zero taxes, zero corporate income taxes. After the fifth year, as Julian explained, they would pay 50% of the amount of taxes that they're supposed to.
Mm.
And after the 10th year, they pay the full amount. But
Mhm.
there's an important provision that is not always pointed out, guys. It's that if you, for a junior market company, I think if you delist, and Julian can correct me, Julian know the rules like the back of his hand. If you delist or come off the stock exchange before the 15th year, you have to pay an amount of taxes, right, Julian?
Yes, I believe so, Simon.
Yes. So this is, of course, a very big disincentive for companies to delist. But however, when that tax holiday is up, so after 10 years, you are paying your full amount of taxes just like any other main market company. Now, remember, the main market is the big market. That's where the big boys play, right? So, what companies can opt to do is say, okay, look, we are paying the same amount of taxes. We want to what we call graduate, right? So like when you graduate from sixth grade and you're going to seventh grade, and then you realize, so wait, primary school are the baby school, man. You know, them get break on them thing there. No, you're with the big boys in the main market, so you can actually graduate to the main market um after a period of time.
You know, Simon, I think the
Mm.
thought process is to prevent a situation where companies will just jump, list on the junior market, and then hop off. They want companies to actually list and stay on the market because that will actually make a more stable market as opposed to having a flurry of firms come to the fore and then jump back off. You get what I'm saying, Simon? I'm talking about
Mm.
the period where the stipulation about if they delisted, they would have to pay back everything.
Yeah, no man, and I agree. So it helps the argument that people have that look. Um, People are just taking advantage of the junior market. So what this does is it kind of forces them to stay on the market rather than come on the market, enjoy almost a decade of paying less taxes
And then
and
jump out.
having access to more money and then just jumping out. So yeah, I completely agree. Shadi, we have a question for you. Does the tax holiday mean that the movement in the deferred tax is not charged to the profit and loss statement?
Remember, initially we did say deferred taxes when you're over, based on if it's deferred tax asset, it's when you're
We're not hearing you, Shadi.
Yeah, I think she just dropped off.
expectation of you paying tax. There's no tax liability. So there would be no deferred tax. if I'm
Okay.
understanding the question.
Okay. So what you're saying that if a company is not paying taxes, corporate income tax, then there may very well be no deferred tax asset or deferred tax liability because there's nothing to
There
defer.
would be nothing for you to overpay or because you wouldn't be having any tax liability for that 5 year or 10 year period.
Okay. Understood. Understood. Thanks a lot, Shadi. Oh, what I forgot, and then another thing. Well, let me just jump to this one first. So this is career as a balance sheet, and if you realize, I just want to point out that the deferred tax asset is in the asset section up here, and they have no deferred tax liabilities yet. Oh, actually, they do. They have an income tax payable, which is usually tax that they're supposed to pay. Yeah, Shade?
Repeat, Simon?
Now I'm saying the income tax payable is tax that they're basically supposed to pay.
Okay.
Yes, Chanel, you're right. So as Shade said a while ago, there will be no liability if there is no tax to pay. All right. So I wanted to kind of shift not just from the company point, but look on, so jump into how this will affect us overall, right? So if you look at the chart that is being projected, the Minister of Finance, Dr. Nigel Clark, has estimated that COVID-19 spending is likely to put $120 billion hole in the budget, right? So whether it be foregone income or money that they have to spend. Now, if you look back, the only natural disaster or disaster in general that Jamaica had that come anywhere close to this was Hurricane Gilbert in 1988. So when adjusted, COVID-19 is expected to cost us around 800 um, billion dollars. Sorry, this is 800 million US, right, Ivy?
Yeah, man, 800 million US.
800 million US. My apologies. While Hurricane Gilbert cost half of that, which is 400 million US back then. So my question, and I'll throw this to top economists and Shadi and Julian. How do you guys think that our taxes will be in the future? So over the past couple of years, over the past few years, taxes have actually been either reduced or cut, right? So actually for this year, the GCT was cut. So do you guys think that because of the reduction in increase in the amount of spending that we have had to do as a country, it is likely that the government will increase taxes in the future or leave it the same?
Definitely, I see an increase in tax coming in the future because now, like the government was projected that they would actually get like 85, what's it, 85 billion. It's gonna cost them at least 85 billion in tax revenues. So they will have to actually get that from somewhere else. And the country was basically in a lockdown, so the productive capacity of the country wasn't being utilized. So definitely, and they would have had like medium term obligations that they want to meet. For example, like the debt to GDP ratio and all of that. And we know that we will actually miss those targets given what has happened. So for me, I'm basically seeing, I don't know where the increase will come, but I'm expecting increases in tax down the line.
No, Ivan. Sorry, Julian,
Yeah.
you want to say something?
Yeah, I agree with Ivy. I think it's highly likely that we might see an increase in taxation because there are so many things at stake. Not only do we have the macroeconomic fundamentals that we're considering, but it's a balancing act. So we have to ensure that we want to deliver on the newfound confidence that we have now, that we are now enjoying from the international community about our ability to climb out of our debt burden. So you can consider it as optics, but confidence is a very important part of the equation, because if the international financial community doesn't believe that we have the ability to deal with our own problems and to be proactive and to make the right choices, it means that we won't be able to access funding, and that will have issues in and of itself. So there are many things to consider, and I think the government is highly likely to go in that direction.
I can agree because with the government having to provide 25 billion or possibly more on COVID or most recent happenings in the economy. So with the government having to provide over 25 billion and with employment, we're having a decrease in employment, so which I'm expecting a reduce in income tax. Also, if persons are no longer employed, I'm seeing a reduction in GCT or any other indirect taxes where it relates to consuming. So I definitely think going forward, the government will have to consider increasing. Uh,
Increase the taxes.
Yeah.
Boy,
okay. For a moment, the phone just went silent. So I'm definitely expecting an increase in government revenue based on the
Taxes.
rapid increase that COVID caused the government to dip in pocket. So with that being said, I do think that tax will increase.
but you know, me go pressure in a bit because
Yeah.
just this year on March the 10th,
Mm-hmm.
um, on March the 10th, when we had our first case, on that same day, GCT was put. So is it that you guys are saying that it's likely that the government may have made a mistake?
Come again, Simon?
No, I'm saying in hindsight, are you saying that the government made a mistake in reducing GCT?
Well,
But
I think
this,
that.
Well,
Oh, go ahead, Shadi. I'm sorry.
I'm saying this took place in the budget was ready in March, and the May 10th was our first case of the virus. At that time, the government may not have project or they would not have known the extent or the damage that COVID would cause. So the budget was ready in March and the first case was May.
March.
No man, March,
I
March,
think I think I
March,
think I
March.
think that like we are operating in a global economy, so I guess
The first
we should
case
have,
was the first case was March 10th.
yeah.
Yeah,
So I'm
So
saying that we're operating in a global economy, so we have to be scanning our horizon, and we would have seen what has been happening in probably China and expect spillovers, possible spillovers. So I don't think that a March 10th date or whatever would actually change anything. They would have to actually be looking forward. But as they were saying, they had their stimulus package ready at the time. They were saying they have that just in case anything. But actually saying the magnitude they weren't really sure of.
I think Dilly is making a good point here. Remember that they had also cut they had also cut the asset tax and it had to
yes,
be
yes.
deferred. I think when it comes on to the GCT, and I will agree with Yap on this. When it comes on to politics, how things look is important as well, right? So the GCT is a much more emotive tax, if you get what I mean. The asset tax is a tax, quote unquote, on rich companies, right? So if you increase their tax, the average man no care zero, right? However, when you move GCT, you affect every part of the economy same time. So
That's true.
maybe they would have thought that look, it's possible to defer the GCT, but this is just not feasible at the moment. Maybe. So Trevon is saying budgets are developed in a month or even 3 months before, and this is true. So the budget that Dr. Clark would have implemented then would have been something that would have taken consultation from across the public sector, which would have taken a while. So it's kind, and I remember Julian, if you remember when we were there, the first case had just been reported like when Parliament started, right? So it would have been difficult for Dr. Clark to say, all right, guys, out of an abundance of safety, we are going to just postpone this until we see it fit, because you actually need a budget going into the next year. So it's a tricky one, but as it pertains to whether I think so, I mean, so I guess everybody is at a little consensus as it pertains to whether the government made a mistake, quote unquote, in not deferring it or in implementing it in the first place. But just to look forward now, my opinion, my personal opinion, is that taxes are likely to increase. However, I don't think that they will increase. I think that they will find other ways to fill the gap or the gaps in the budget outside of taxes. Because if you look at where the government or the song that the government has been singing for the past few years, so we are the economically strong government. These variables have been doing better. Debt to GDP. There has been a lot of focus on debt to GDP. So every time it's reported, it's like a big party, you know. Um, it and then the no taxes thing has been a very big selling point as well. It's difficult to then come back to the people and say, okay, we are going to increase these taxes, because I think it's likely. But I'm not particularly certain that they will do it.
Simon.
Sorry. Yeah, Julian.
So, in relation to it being a mistake,
Mm-hmm.
personally, I wouldn't frame it as a mistake. I
Mm.
think if they really had a crystal ball, so to speak, they probably wouldn't have made that decision. And overall, I agree with your position in that they might find another way to fill the gap. I think even outside of optics, though, when Minister Favour Williams was working more closely in the Ministry of Finance, she had said on repeated occasions that the broader strategy is to move away from direct taxation and move more to indirect taxation. So the government would want to change the way in which it focuses on taxes. So what that means is they would move more towards the type of policy where we would see a reduction in GCT and more of an increase in other areas. So I think in a perfect world, um, they would have executed things differently.
All right. So Jovan asks a very important question. It's something we are jumping on, but I mean we can touch on it now. And guys, remember we're keeping this conversation relatively simple so that everybody can understand. All right. So he said that given the impact of COVID-19 and the possible impact of the hurricane season, which exacerbate the state of the economy, do you really think that the government would pursue a contractionary um, fiscal policy? So I think coming out of a possible, well, not a possible, coming out of the recession that we are going to go into, if when this quarter's GDP is released, um, the initial stimulus is expansionary. So when we say expansionary fiscal policy, guys, we're just talking about the government spending more. So the government would be net spending rather than cutting, rather than increasing taxes, right? So they would spend on infrastructure, the digital economy, which they're talking about. So there's going to be a lot of expansionary fiscal policy.
Yeah,
But
CARE
what
is an example of that, Simon.
Yes, so the CARE program, the
Mm.
CARE program that they've done, and the tremendous amount of spending, necessary spending that has been done through the public health. But the point I want to make is when I talk about a possible increase in taxes, I'm not talking about immediately. Because remember,
Long term.
yeah, so economies operate in phases. So what happens in a time when a government does what we call expansionary fiscal policy, or they're spending more than they're getting in, is that they will likely have to borrow, right? They are very likely to borrow, and you would have seen where Jamaica has
I know.
already accessed the rapid finance
But
instrument.
yeah.
So it is likely that our debt to GDP will increase. So I am talking about in the future. So in the future, when we have relatively more debt, um, when we have relatively more debt,
Would have moved
because
away from the
of the
peer.
up in expenses, how are we going to pay for that? No,
Sa-
yes, Shadi. You can always
Simon, do we prefer more public debt or just to sensitize those citizens? Because everybody's aware of what is happening. Everybody's aware of the damage that COVID has exposed the country to. Do we prefer more public debt, or would we rather to do symposium or any form of way we can sensitize person and just help them to understand the importance of a slight increase in the taxes, probably for a period of time. It doesn't have to be prolonged. Just
why
explain to
In the,
persons.
in the
So do we prefer more public debt? Because we're very proud that we're managing to finance the debt and everything is normalizing after such long time.
I
So
think
it all
I
depends on
think
what
it goes to
is
I
better
think
for
it
us.
probably goes to the impact, overall impact that it will have taxes relative to borrowing money and allowing our future generations to
That
pay.
also has to play a factor. That was you're correct. That has to play a factor. But after weighing everything, it has to be what will give us the most out of the situation and what is better for us going forward and rebuilding the economy.
One of the things that a government would not want to do is to tax an already burdened the economy,
yeah.
which in the past we've been forced to do, right? So in the past we had to do it because that's how they kept the lights on. Now when Jamaica is in a position where the macro, where we're more stable from a macro perspective, our politics is stabler,
Mm.
and we have access to credit, they may say, okay, it's probably easier to try to get some debt
Okay.
rather than to go to the people and add further burden to them and by increasing taxes. And remember, Shade, the Minister Clark had also mentioned that they have a couple $1 billion on the balance sheet. They have a couple $1 billion that they can use within the government. So they actually
Mhm.
have cash that they can tap in.
Okay. Tap into if needs be.
Yeah. So
But
I mean, I agree with the up here.
but
Mm.
Yes,
Simon, I agree with Shade in that there could be a chance that the government could issue new bonds because even from a capital markets perspective, interest rates are so low right now, and large international investors are looking for yield. So if Jamaica was to issue new bonds, the uptake for our bonds based on our performance economically, our ability to take the initiative, for example, by tapping the IMF RFI facility and making all of those decisions, I'm thinking that the, we would have a very high level of support for new debt instruments if we chose to go that route, which would incentivize the government saying, hey, let's just borrow some fresh debt instead of squeezing the economy too much through new taxes.
Okay. So I mean, as it pertains, so when we were talking about a possible increase in taxes, we're talking about the future. Trevon is saying here, as a part of the expansionary policy, and just for everybody else that's following, expansionary just means spending more than you're taking in. So for example, at the end of the month, when you go for press smart, you have a lot of expansionary policy. For press smart, because you're spending more than the income you have sometimes. Um, Reducing taxes, Trevon was saying, and or spend more. So I guess he's saying that you can reduce taxes and spend more, or just reduce taxes.
Yeah,
But
I think he's referring to the expansionary fiscal policy.
Right.
yeah, man. So I'm saying with this one, honestly, I mean, at the end of the day, it's always up to the government and the stance that they want to take. But I think it's probably better they don't touch the taxes at all and spend more, because when you reduce, you know what? It's possible that they could reduce what we call distortionary taxes, or continue to reduce taxes. So those are the taxes that actually hurt businesses, that don't make the government a lot of money. So for example, the minimum business tax,
Mm-hmm.
the minimum business tax would was one that was actually hurting a lot of small businesses. So getting rid of taxes like that, if that's the case, then okay. So they on 876 um is making a good point. He's saying that the TJH age here, guys, is Trans Jamaica Global Bond, was rated as one of the best rated infrastructure instruments currently available. New taxes would be counterproductive, especially at a time. So we agree, you know. But what
I
I
think I
was
think
saying,
I think I think what is confusing us is the time period in which we are looking at. Because I guess you assume that in the long run,
spending.
huh?
No, immediately I was talking about more spending and over a period of time.
Yes, so that
Uh,
is what we need to make clear, because I guess that is where the confusion is.
okay, all right. So just to brief the conversation again. So what we're saying is that the government, what I was saying is that the government will likely have to spend a lot of money now, right?
Yeah,
Not likely, they are
they will.
going to
Yeah,
spend a lot of, they will, and they have already started to,
start spend.
right? So I'm saying that they're going to spend a lot of money. It's in the short term, next year, probably the year after, it's unlikely that they're going to increase taxes,
Yeah,
right? So Jovan and Trevon have been making the argument that they're likely to reduce taxes, right? But what we're saying is that as years pass, they may have to increase taxes to pay back the amount of debt that they have here.
yeah. After we
No,
have come out of the COVID period and all of that.
so yeah, we're talking about after the COVID period.
Yeah, man.
No,
I guess when
just
we started the conversation, we were talking about it on a long-term basis, but we never specified that, and then the whole confusion.
okay. So I mean, yeah, man. So that's basically what we were saying as it pertains to that. So I think the government is going to spend a lot of money over the next year or so. Um, and I mean, me and Trevon have differing opinions on the reducing tax. Yeah, man, Dayan. So Dayan is saying, don't forget elections are close. Yes. So remember, we agreeing with that, you know. So I was saying that that's another reason. I think Yap mentioned that that's another reason why, tax increase in taxes is not a sexy thing nowadays, right? So they may
Yeah.
opt to not. I don't know. You had another point, Wendell?
Oh man, I'm good. We are at the same place, on the same page basically. So now in the short run, it's basically to keep the economy bubbling and basically try to have that liquidity within the economy.
So basically, you're saying that less taxes means that we actually spend more, right?
As Trevor was saying, that the fiscal policy is either you spend more or you collect or you reduce taxes if you want to expand it.
Okay,
Well,
understood.
I think the writing is on the wall because the government has been talking a lot recently about things that they're going to spend on. So I know Favor and sorry, Miss Favor and her ministry have been discussing the digital economy a lot. There have been conversations about petrojam pricing. So we're seeing where a lot of the inefficiencies that we've always mentioned are coming up now, and the government is likely to spend on those to stimulate the economy. So Ashley, I know that you are in the tech side of the market. I just wanted to briefly touch on that side of the market and how that has been or is likely to change and progress coming out of the discussions that the ministry is having now.
Yeah, in terms of the digital market, what they're actually trying to do, like most companies, they have initiatives like they just want to pretty much get everything online. In terms of reducing wait times to do any form of business. Like they're just focusing on efficiency, as Prime Minister Andrew Holness actually said that he wants businesses to focus on getting the goods to the customer rather than getting the customers going to a physical location to get some of that similar business model to like what Amazon have, where they deliver things. A lot of e-commerce going to definitely take place, especially locally, and we have seen a lot of courier companies come up. But the dilemma with that is most of in terms of the logistics and getting that formal infrastructure in place just to support that digital move, because in terms of Jamaica, we don't necessarily have a digital infrastructure like that to support some of these initiatives that the government wants. So we're pretty much building from the ground up right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I understand. As it pertains to the tech side of the market, Ashton, do you expect, so is it that we can expect to see more tech companies possibly listing on the stock exchange?
Yes, that's a very possibility, because that's a big possibility, right? Because what happens is that when most companies go online, there's a lot of need for different tech solution services. So, for example, things from web hosting, data analytics, because when you're online, that means you're producing a lot of data with whether you're clicking, you're pressing buttons, you're using widgets, anything like that. So definitely more tech companies are going to be formed, and the ones that exist right now who are in the correct market space will definitely be taking advantage of it, probably seeing a revenue growth, things like that pretty much.
Okay, I understand. I want to open the floor before we close, so we're closing in about 10-15 minutes. So if anybody has any questions that they'd like or anything that they'd like to discuss, or if any of the moderators have any more points that they wanted to make as it pertains to this.
All right, I have a question. So, how do you guys see this work from home thing playing out in the long run in terms of remote work in Jamaica overall? I know that you have many companies who will actually use it to their advantage, but you might still have some companies that are run by older folks who still believe that okay, then you still need to come in, even though your processes um is really showing that hey, you can actually work remotely, you can work from home, can have staggered hours. When do you think that Jamaica will actually reach this point where many of the other first world countries are in terms of remote work and allowing people that flexibility so that, for example, they can actually in the days probably do some stuff for themselves and overall they can enjoy a better quality of life in terms of that balance between working from home and getting personal stuff done. How
I
do you
mean,
see that
wait,
playing out?
let me, I can tackle that right on, right? So for me, yeah, man. So for me, it's all about understanding, right? Because a lot of us Jamaicans are the older folks where we're currently still in the mindset that work is a place and work is not something that you do. So regardless of it, the place really doesn't matter if you're doing certain kind of jobs, right? And there's a lot of benefit for all of this remote work, right? Because for example, if you're in Kingston, like you would know what the traffic looks like prior to COVID, right? I'm hoping that some of those that congestion will go down because some companies will still use these work from home. Um, you know,
Yeah, yeah. And I can definitely see like cost savings for, and I'm sure you guys would agree, cost savings for firms who, like, for example, you have firms who can basically operate remotely. So they don't have to pay that cost of having like an the office space or pay that cost.
yeah,
But I'm thinking that firms could compensate because um many persons who are working from home now, they probably have their work desktops at home or work computers and they actually use their own utilities. But that is not really, they don't get compensated for that. And yet still their utilities have increased, especially with JPS doing doubling all that kind of
well,
stuff.
Ivy, let us actually say not yet, right? Because I just learned I have a family member that's in the states, and they were telling me that they were working from home, and what the government there allows them to have that they set up at their house the write off as a tax benefit per se. So we don't know what the future holds locally, whether we can probably get some compensation from the government or from our respective institution for that for these utilities, right?
I think I have a question on what you're discussing. How do you see this affecting our small? How do you see this affecting the housing market?
The work from home thing.
Yeah, for the same discussion that you were having a while ago.
The housing market, I think prices in those areas probably will start going up same way.
Going up.
Okay.
Well, I have a different take on that with the housing market, right? Because what we'll see, right, for example, in Kingston, like we have high concentration areas, right? Because you want to per se be closer to the job. But if the working from home becomes like we embrace it full on, right? We won't be limited necessarily to a
Oh yeah, yeah.
demographic location. You understand what I'm saying? So I can still go in the St. Thomas with Simon Love so much, get some of them more affordable housing and still have a job in Kingston or pretty much anywhere in Jamaica, right? Just living that quality of life and still having a job.
I wanted to the last thing I have here for discussion is tax efficiency, or sorry, tax compliance. My bad. So a major reason that I've seen quoted why we don't collect the amount of taxes that we're supposed to is not necessarily because people don't want to pay, but because it's not necessarily easy to pay at all. So the argument is that if the tax administration had a more efficient system, then more people would be compliant,
Yeah, yes, Simon.
as it pertains to that. So I was talking about it. Well, it's something that I've labored on, to be honest. Because when you get exposed to other countries and you see their best practices, and you come home, you kind of just realize that, hey, really and truly, we can do better. When I go to the tax office, me have to set up, me have to tell my boss say me I come back lunchtime and me go from in the morning. You know, and as Ivy would say, that's the last productivity, that's hours that I wasted within in a line.
Boy,
There are a
Simon,
lot of
I just hope that coming out of this the new digital economy, some of these initiatives will definitely be fixed because you and I can definitely agree that's a complete waste of time to be
so
there all day. Yeah, man.
so what I've heard, what I've heard is that so let's talk about what's happened already. So let's be fair to the tax agency. You can currently pay certain things online. However, I think the tax admin site is not user friendly. It's not user friendly at all. And I think a app. Me think the NCB app. Let me realize the Jamaican companies can have some quality apps as well. Or
Yes.
something like that. I want. You know, when we can just click similar speeding ticket when we get on the Ochi Highway and just click have a card that's connected to the account already and just pay that. If that was easier, then more people would actually pay over taxes and it would be easier to police. So what the tax admin staff spend a lot of time doing is processing papers and organizing lines when they could have higher value jobs in there to come up with ways to get more um compliance, you know. So boy, it's as it pertains to tax admin. But as I was saying, what I heard, somebody messaged me anonymously and said that the tax admin is actually in the process of um retrofitting their website because anybody with eyes can see that the website needs work. And they're possibly working on an application as well, right? So yeah, so I guess things are in the pipeline. But I think I hear the Prime Minister talking about the digital economy, and I will say this without a doubt: the digital economy must be led by the public sector. The government should set an example for the private sector. If government services are easy to deal with and transparent and digitized, and the government is more productive, then this economy will grow.
Of course.
Just to close, we have a few questions from the work from home thing that you guys were talking about. Makeda has a question. I'm going to put it on the screen. So Makeda is basically asking if has your productivity increased from being at home? Nope.
Wow, Simon. That was labor first.
No, I think the interaction there was a very clear separation between my work environment and my home environment. When I am home, I am tired. As me step through the gate, I feel tired, right? When I am home, I am a sleeper, guys. So for the times that I do sleep, I sleep, right? So when I'm home, I want to sleep, I want to watch YouTube, I want to read my articles, etc. And I don't do work at home, I do work at work. So I have not been more productive, but I've tried. What about you guys?
For me, well, it's actually the complete opposite of that, Simon. My productivity has increased because I normally spend a lot of time, for example, in traffic, like at least 2 hours a day. So that time that I was actually spending in traffic has gone back to work, and then for example, I don't know. I work way longer than how I usually work, to be honest, because work is just there and I can't really escape it. So
Yeah.
that's for me.
Yeah, man, my productivity has increased also. The time spent in traffic, all of that.
All of that come right
Use
back.
put in some productive work. And as Ashleen said, I also find myself working overtime.
But you know when work start back, that's gonna be a challenge, you know, because you know and one of the things that I got from my company, you know, because they sent out a little presentation on it, is that you have to try to separate it because you might become so productive that all you're doing at home is working, 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 and you know, not realizing that you should also you know, you should relax. So R small is agreeing with you guys, not to mention the time that it takes to prepare for work. Boy, to be honest, I have it down to a science, you know. So you see, I am on the other side of the coin. I get up just in time to get to work on time. I get ready very quickly. I get up at a time where I know so I can get to work in terms of traffic relatively quick. And I leave work when there's no traffic. I deliberately work longer so that I can go on the road when there's no traffic. Right? So I am more productive at work. I'll be honest.
Okay. That's
So Dayan made a good point. Interesting point with traffic. Is anyone here, and we'll take one more question after this. Is anyone here running a business from home currently due to COVID? Guys, this is a underrated benefit of COVID. You know. So I know people that COVID has allowed them to spend more time on building their own personal business, right? Which is in order to get multiple streams of income. So yes, Dayan, definitely. I would say definitely. Jerry says he's doing a full day's work in 3 hours due to
right.
the lack of distraction. Is that a full day's work at home, or you usually do a full day's work at work?
I'm thinking that he's saying that when he's in office, he's more distracted.
Yeah,
So probably
probably
walk around, somebody come and next to talk to him about
Oh,
football.
socializing with colleagues, the whole nine
oh,
yards.
man, you have the game there, and your boss come and check you out, and okay, I get you, I get
And them long
you.
lunch breaks and all of that.
You want to make more tea at work because you know you want to make more tea at work because it's free. And you actually, if you go on the road for lunch, you know you're going to Kingston for lunch. Lunchtime it'll take you an hour and a half.
But
So,
as I said that Simon, I think many people who probably would have gone into office like for some days because I know that everybody got the opportunity to stay home like the 5 days per week. So people who actually went a few days, I think like for me, I not just take my lunch to work before I was always purchasing and over the whole time the amount of money that I've saved just by taking lunch to work. I guess it the live finished. Hello?
No, we're still here.
oh,
No,
sorry,
I was just talking in terms of cost savings
the cost save. Yeah, I get
due to
that.
COVID.
Prince Rich says that he finds that he works much longer hours. Prince, you have to separate your work environment from your home environment, you know. Um, but yeah. So overall, guys, if there is nothing else, we just want to do a little synopsis of what we've spoken about. So we talked about what are taxes, the main types of taxes. We spoke about a progressive versus a regressive tax. Where do taxes come from? So the major income streams for the government. We spoke about what the government uses our taxes to do. And as it pertains to this, I just wanted to make a point. We need to stop calling it the government's money. The government does not make money. It's
Money,
not the government's money. It's
taxpayer.
our, I find that when we say government's money, we kind of push it
No
off.
business. Yeah.
Yeah, we push it off, and it's like I say, okay, them responsible for that. I think if we said it's our money more often, more people would actually realize that it's their money, it's the taxpayers' money, and we would actually be more upset when the money is misused. So like this Mandeville thing, I saw a comment that said that money, 400 million, 300,
400 million. 400.
400 million.
one family take $400 million and somebody say are the government's money. No, 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 no.
They now check them pay slip.
Government don't have a dollar. They took $400 million of our money. That's $400 million that did not go into education, did not go into health, did not go into other support services. That's 400
COVID
million.
recovery.
COVID recovery. That's $400 million that a man used build an apartment building and buy expensive cars. So oh sorry. So yeah, what the taxes are used to do, impact of taxes on listed companies. So we basically showed you guys where to find the tax figures. I know the more advanced investors may say, boy Simon, why you have to show that? But because it's so simple, but remember we have new investors as well. And we spoke about the impact that that COVID is likely to have on taxes in the future. And the synopsis of that is that we believe that taxes are not likely to increase in the short run, maybe in the long run, but definitely there will be an increase in government spending. And just a final word from the moderators and Ashley.
Uh, yeah, that's it was a pretty good session. You know, I learned a lot about taxes that I didn't know, to be honest. I like especially about the deferred taxes. That was very interesting for me.
Yeah. Ivy.
Hey man, it was a useful session as usual. And just looking forward to see how this COVID thing will really play out. And we'll move back and watch the economy recover. I don't know how long it will take to recover. Like there were some estimates, like for example, people who got employed, it took at least 31 quarters, which was approximately 8 years to recover fully to what it was before. But I think COVID is kind of a bit different from that of the financial crisis. So let's see.
Yeah, Simon, I like the fact that you mentioned that we need to take responsibility of how the government revenue is being spent, because at the end of the day, it's our hard-working money. So that is a crucial point for us to really observe and understand that we are to hold them accountable because they are just the steward of those money because it belongs to us. It was a very informative session because tax affects
And
everybody, as I said in the beginning, whether directly, if you don't work, you may not pay income taxes and the other direct taxes, but you definitely buy stuff every day. You definitely go at some point go to the supermarket. So you're always persons are affected by tax. The layman, professionals, everyone is affected by tax. So it is important that we understand even the basics.
very, very important. And I mean, just like how we talk about stocks, and we say, "Oh, yeah, man, you see that stock is my company, right? Because you're a shareholder, it's your company." We should talk about government revenue the same way. Tinash, I definitely agree that we need a clear roadmap to recover from the Minister of Finance. I think that's in the works, or I would hope that that's in the works. Thanks Mio Soti. Header, yeah, man, thanks. I read the objection office. That's something that I learned today. So I didn't even know the name of the office. Somebody just said, go up there, Sir Simon. And I went. And yeah. So, I mean,
But
just check it out.
wait, a question to the objection office. But what happens if the flip side? What if you're paying less taxes? Is there ever a case of that?
Yo, that's a very good question, you know. So, Ashley, when you wait so long to ask a question, then
No,
that's a
it
very
just
good
came up. It
question.
just came out. Yeah.
I've heard, I've heard many cases. Oh, Yap is saying that that's the purpose of the office. That's why it's called an objection office. I've heard many cases. You know what? Me not gonna say many. That's a hyperbole. I've heard a few cases where people, for example, leave their job and they thought that their job was paying over their NHT or their taxes for them. Because you know, say sometimes the companies collect the money and pay it on your behalf. And then when they go to the tax office now, the tax office say, look, you owe me $300,000, you owe me $600,000, etc., etc. So Yap is saying, and this is very good information. Thanks again, Yap. You can go there and query and object to the demand notice. So I guess the demand notice is when they send a letter to you saying that we demand back our money from you. But yes, guys, check, and in general, even if it's not to go to check for the amount of money that they have for you, generally go and check your tax status. Because I heard on the
Yeah.
radio a guy who was paying his NIS for decades. And when he retired and went to get him little retirement money, they said that the company didn't pay over anything.
And the
Yep.
onus is on the taxpayer to
Yes.
ensure that their tax is being paid. So
Yes.
they
So I
have to
think
take responsibility.
yes, definitely so, Shadi. I think it was Yap one mentioned to me a while back that the tax agency actually says the onus is on the taxpayer. So say
That's
Yap is
true.
saying that he's been audited in 2014, 15. What? Oh, Yap, I can't. I didn't. Oh man, Yap.
Yeah, for the
Yeah, yeah,
subsidies.
I'm like you, man. So you are saying
every year.
auditor in 4 consecutive years, and them say you owe money. Wow. So Yap, you pay about the people their money or it's sort out.
Like it started out after 2017. Or them
Right.
find said it, or them find the transaction them elsewhere.
Oh, he said that they have him flagged as self-employed. I
Oh,
don't know how that work, but guys, please go and check your tax status. Check your tax status is very important. I think that's probably one of the major things that's coming out of tonight. Um, Especially for me, because I haven't checked since the last tax season. So I should check. Oh, also, there's a point that I wanted to make. The NHT app, it shows all of your contributions for the last couple of years. So download the NHT app, register, and you'll be able to see your contributions and what the NHT owes you over a period of times. Godiva is also giving. No man, we have some superstar in the comment section, man.
P45.
Godiva is also saying ask your employers for your P45. And you know,
Mhm.
I think that's why me the end up a go down at the objection office. I got a P45. I remember that P45 thing, and I was advised to go there. Anyways, that's important, guys. Ask them for your P45. Very important. But yeah, man, the NHT app, I mean, the aesthetics isn't perfect. Yes, I am big on aesthetics. However, it is effective and it shows me what I want to know from the NHT. Right? So thanks again, guys, and thanks for everything. Thanks for all of the tips, Yap, Godiva, Jelly, Miosoti, the Guyanese, Dayan, and everybody else. Um, Thanks again, guys. Take care. See you next month.